You're listening to The Alex Jones Show.
You can hear Tommy, Tommy, that chant.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel when you hear that?
I feel like I never feel alone anyway. That's one thing. And I also know and I'm confident that whilst I'm in jail, my family will be looked after. No matter what happens here, I sit in confidence knowing that my family will be looked after.
So there's a sense of not feeling alone, even though the state have tried to make you feel like you're completely alone.
Oh yeah, everywhere I walk, yeah? When I walk into any pub in any town or city, I get a hero's reception. I haven't bought a beer for years.
Hey!
There's some That's true.
That's a bonus.
So I get a hero's reception. So essentially, this myth that I'm hated is
I
just
know.
a myth. The same with you. You know,
Yeah.
know when you walk around, and it's that's Danny, and I just think that I've got nothing to apologise for.
No.
I will not apologise. I have been convicted, so people understand what the wording means, of causing anxiety to the Muslim paedophiles by asking them how they feel about their verdict. That's enough to cause them anxiety, which might make them fearful to come back into court, which impedes the course of justice, which is what I've been convicted of. It's insane. Even my barrister, look, I said, how are we going to get on before the trial? And they said, well, they're in trouble, because the law's the law. Well, the law's the law, it doesn't matter. They've gone against the law.
Yes, well, the law, they say the law is the law, but it's just their interpretation of whatever they want them to be. And that's what people need to understand and see, that we don't have a fair system. And if you end up in prison for causing anxiety to Muslim paedophiles, majority Pakistani Muslim paedophiles,
who have been on bail for 2 years, who have been walking around, one of them.
I thought it was left, isn't it?
It is left, isn't it? It's left.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can't go to prison if we don't go to court.
I know.
So
I see the passion in everyone else. I understand how much it means to everyone else who doesn't feel like they've got a voice. This is the government's attempt to silence that voice for everyone. If they can do this to me, they can do it to you. They can do it to everyone.
Well done. Well done, good lad. What's your name? Well done, Felix.
Tell us about the asylum claim. Has there been any response to it?
I've been caught for doing what you've just done. This is contempt of law. That's what I've been convicted. You're a journalist. Please have a conviction.
That's a bit of a snowflake attitude. If you don't mind me saying so. I'm just asking some questions. That's a bit of a snowflake attitude. I'm just asking you a question.
I'm telling you, I am being sent to jail for doing what you just done. I'm not saying what you've done is wrong. I'm saying that if
there's no reporting restrictions on this case.
No. My conviction was for causing anxiety to Muslim paedophiles. That's my conviction. Nothing to do with it.
So why? Tell me the asylum claim. What response did you get? You tell me what happened to the response to the asylum claim.
I've had a great response. Persecution. How can I be sent to prison for asking a paedophile how he feels about his sentence? That's all I ask. Anyone can watch a video. You can speculate fake news lies for the corporate globalist media wherever you want. No one trusts you. No one believes you. That's why everyone follows me.
So why are you asking for asylum then?
Well, I'm asking for it because there's 6 Muslims in jail now who want to kill me because I'm being imprisoned illegally.
You were in prison last year.
No, I spent 3 months in solitary confinement. My mental health was damaged, and they know that intentionally. If I spend 10 years in solitary confinement, it will destroy me. They know that.
Yeah, this is Tony Robinson, last interview as he's marched into prison for first exposing giant child kidnapping rings that have been convicted. He thought he'd be carried on people's arms. Instead, the criminal government has put him in jail 3 times. Convicted of journalism.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.
This is powerful HD footage. Needs to be seen by everybody. It's exclusively at newswars.com and infowars.com, and it's free. And I'm not bragging. That's you I'm bragging about. You're buying products financed.
And in this moment, he really is part of something much bigger. An army of patriots, proud and loyal, wanting to stand up for a better Britain. All these silenced voices suddenly louder than ever before. But as Tommy takes his bags and hugs his mates, it's him alone that has to face the courts.
Which way are you going in there?
One man, standing up for our daughters against the system and the state.
And ladies and gentlemen,
out of court watching Tommy Robinson be sentenced for the crime of contempt of court. No one else has ever been sent to prison for this crime, but of course Tommy Robinson has. In fact, the judge said there's no sentencing guidelines for this type of crime. What she said essentially was that she needed to make an example out of Tommy to deter other people from doing the same. So he's actually got 19 weeks because of time already served. He will only have to do half of that in prison. So half of 19 weeks is what Tommy will actually spend inside jail. But I think just as a mother, watching Tommy go down behind the perspex glass, go down those stairs with all the keys going and the prison officers, there's a real sense of, you know, what is this country doing to a guy who is just using his phone, repeating information in the public domain? This really is the state versus the people. But what's a great thing to see here today with so many people gathered is that the people still haven't given up.
and don't forget Count Dankula, tens of millions of views per video, popular memer, had the pug say Heil Hitler, just like John Cleese did similar jokes on Monty Python, facing multiple years in prison, massive fines. And they're dragging him through court for years to suck every dime out of him. And it's more and more people. Now, you wouldn't be able to see that HD footage and have that, because everybody else had crappy footage, unless you, the listeners, had bought products from us and we were able to pay for her to have a camera person and a camera. And Katie Hopkins does work for InfoWars. I'd love to have her full-time, but we can only afford to have her part-time. Even though she works for free, we've got to pay for the camera people, the editing equipment, and the travel. She works for free. And she even spends her own money. So that's what this comes down to. Another reporter doing work for Infowars.com. And we've got dozens and dozens and dozens of people you don't know about that your money is financing right now. Please, more important than money is your prayers and your word of mouth. Go to Infowars.com or Newswars.com and get the article that has the video you just saw in HD, Tommy Robinson's final interview before being sent to prison. Tommy Robinson's final interview before court and prison. Anyone can see the video and see I've committed no crime. And it's very, very important people see this, because you're next, I'm next, if we don't form a coalition against this. I have one other news item I want to hit, but we have 75 to 20% off all products at InfoWarsStore.com. We have a bunch of other specials. Dozens and dozens of items are $17.76. All T-shirts and all apparel $17.76. So I guess that's hundreds of products are $17.76. And a lot of the great supplements are $17.76. Ultra 12, twice as strong as Secret 12, $17.76. The $17.76 ball cap that costs $15. It's so nice, made in America. That's $17.76. Super Silver Wound Gel, that's $17.76. Folks, it cost me $10 a tube. We're the only other group licensed to buy it from the U.S. company in Denver that's used in hospitals. It's sold in stores for $40 under another name. $17.76. You cannot beat these deals at InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. 888-253-3139. And I want to thank the great audience. I want to thank the great crew. There's still 3 hours left. Bill Johnson came into town to host while Owen's out. Owen Schroyer's filed a bunch of bombshell reports as well. Another big report that's on Infowars.com is Ali Alexander, who does have a lot of connections in the White House and was at the media summit, said he met with the Trump officials, and they said there's going to be another event with Alex Jones, Milo Yiannopoulos, Laura Loomer, Gavin McInnes, and others, but that they wanted this first one to not be as controversial. Well, whatever. All I care about is taking action against big tech, and Trump is starting to go in the right direction, so let's keep the heat on, and that is certainly a good thing, because we don't have free speech, and the president doesn't understand what's happening. We will lose this next election, and Katie barred the door. It'll just be absolutely hellish. So that interview at Trump Hotel with Ali Alexander and others talking about that is on Infowars.com and Newswars.com. In fact, it's only about a 4-minute interview. We'll air that with Will Johnson in the War Room coming up, which starts in T-minus 40 seconds at Infowars.com/show. And I sure hope that a lot of the other affiliates out there will pick up the War Room. And, of course, I'm teleprompter free, so I make mistakes constantly. There's another hour of the Alex Jones Show with the awesome Dr. Nick Beggs coming up. And then in 60 minutes and 18 seconds, you will have the War Room with Will Johnson sitting in for Owen Schroyer. But that's it for me. I'm signing off. Thanks to the crew and all of you. We will continue on and we will prevail. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk to We're going to talk to Jason in Florida. Jason, thanks for calling in. What's your view on the situation? How should Trump take action?
Jones.
Go ahead.
First of all, I'd like to plug products. My son and I are both big Super Blue fans. My son also takes the Honor Roll, which is a fantastic product. Originally, they wanted to test him for ADHD. Well, that wasn't the case at all. He's just a really smart kid. So the Honor Roll product, amazing, amazing results from that product. Mr. Jones, thank you very much for everything.
Since you raise it, it's doing our research with top companies, it's one of the highest rated blends of fish oil, particularly with small caplets for children, and it's had the mercury taken out of it, and they found that it's really a missing link in a lot of young people's brains. What effect did it have?
Actually, it allowed him to focus. As a 5-year-old kid, he was having a little trouble staying in his seat and things like that, and, you know, I feed him well, he exercises, we swim every day and things like that, but the reality is I just think his diet was missing something that over the last year of using the Honor Roll product, off the charts. He's testing in the top percentages of his class, and people are beside themselves. And you know, I swear by the product. I wouldn't turn him away from it. He even tells me every morning he doesn't have it. Daddy, I just don't feel as well as I did the other day. And I think a lot of it has to do with the young developing mind and body. And without the product, I will say that on my own personal experience, I will say these products work, and that I thank you, and my son also thank you for them as well.
Well, Jason, thank you for your support. Good, clean fish oil or krill oil. There's nothing better. I mean, with my own children, one of my daughters can, kind of get up, low blood sugar, be a little bit grumpy, get her to eat some basic food, then she's not grumpy. But when she takes her fish oil, she goes, Daddy, I feel so much better after I take it. I'm like, absolutely. So thank you, Jason.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
To Infowars.com, and I lost my guy in my ear isn't there right now, but that's okay. You know, Infowars, what a week again, last couple of weeks really, when you start to think about what's going on in the national news, what the play has been, and what we see unfolding in the last couple of weeks. You know, the whole idea of free speech, the whole idea of being able to have this conversation on the air, it really boils back down to freedom to think. I mean, stop and look at what's going on with Tommy Robinson this week. What is he really reporting on? It's the right to know, really, the right to know, the right to information, the right to have what's needed within a democratic republic or democracy, so that you have a fighting chance to have a discussion, even if those discussions some people find repugnant or unacceptable or politically incorrect. And the political incorrectness has now gotten us a layering of silence, if you will. where people don't say what's on their mind, even though the majority of people might feel that way. Think about this in terms of controlling thought as the first step in really a more overt step, an obvious step. And in fact, they don't even hide from it anymore. You know, it's like public shaming. The same thing's used in China. Oh, well, you don't agree with the majority opinion, therefore you've got to be wrong. Thank God that didn't prevail 244 years ago at the eve of 1776, right? I mean, had people believed that, we would be in deep trouble. The fact is, there was really, think about that. 243 years ago, what was the debate in the town square? It was whether to tell King George to head for the hills or stand your ground. Whoa. And people are worried about saying something offensive almost 2.5 centuries later. Are you kidding me? If that wasn't saying something offensive, I don't know what was. Because if you were a British loyalist standing in the town square in Boston hearing the speeches, you might have been a little uncomfortable. You might not get a trophy. You might get your ass kicked all the way back across the Atlantic. You know, what I see happening to Tommy Robinson ought to be it's the shot over the bow for Great Britain's people, really, to rise up and face a government that's forgotten them, forgotten the obligation of information, even if you don't agree with it. You know, so what are they hiding that they're so worried about the British people being upset about? They're hiding trials so that people don't know who's committing the crimes. And they happen to line up with a whole bunch of people that everyone's kind of complaining about, you know. So why can't you report on criminal actions in Great Britain happening today? Because it's not politically correct, because it doesn't sing the song, it doesn't have the agenda of the elites. We're going to be right back. This is Dr. Nick Begich, and you're listening to the InfoWars.
Serving with InfoWars is a great honor, but I still need my morning coffee. And luckily, our break room at the InfoWars headquarters is stocked full of high-quality InfoWars store Patriot Blend coffee. Grown in the high mountains of southern Mexico, the Chiapas farmers grow 100% organic, non-GMO coffee at the ideal altitude for the perfect cup. A robust coffee with great flavor and mild acidity. There has never been a more important time to support InfoWars. So if you love coffee and if you want to fight for freedom, then you can help. Order now at the InfoWars store. Sign up for AutoShip and get your own high-quality supply of Patriot Blend coffee delivered right to your door at InfoWarsStore.com.
The Alex Jones Show, because there is a war on for your mind, with Nick Begich.
And welcome back to InfoWars. And it's a Friday afternoon. I'm here in Alaska in my home in Anchorage, talking about really what is mind control as a concept. You know, the idea of controlling thought really is where it begins, and the most simplistic methods being applied today. You know, politically correct speech as an example, taken to all new levels in Great Britain. Today, Tommy Robinson in trouble for doing what? For asking a few questions for informing the public on what's happening in his country. And unfortunately, in this so-called bastion of democracy, Great Britain, he's being sold out. And the press, the way the press is covering it is, they're next. You know, and there really isn't much free press in Great Britain anyway. It's all public press, right? And then you have the Guardian, and you have the Mirror, and you have the rags of newspapers that actually occasionally report something, but even they are intimidated, I'm sure, by this. And then you think about, again, on the radical side of reporting, you know, it's one slice at a time. You know, Assange recently, you know, of course, reporting where all the big media outlets in the whole world loved it when they were getting the feed, right, and reporting the stories. And now they forget the guy that broke the story and dump him into some hole somewhere. Because what you don't realize is these guys, you know, the Noriegas, the Assanges, people that know the real story, when they go to trial in the U.S., then they go into the little black box of jail where nobody talks to them, where they don't get access to anything. You know, if you really want to destroy a democratic republic like ours, you have to attack the First Amendment. And so the First Amendment is about the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom to believe, basically. Freedom to believe, foundationally, with all of those platforms, basic rights in the United States. And they're being undermined gradually here in lots of different ways, but undermined nonetheless. And then think about what's going on in China in social scoring, and now what's happening in the U.S. and blackmailing. I mean, excuse me, leaking information to the media for them to channel up into the propaganda game. And, you know, when you think about mind control, you think about propaganda, information control is really what it's about. So when you start layering all these things, you start thinking about sort of the Orwellian view now of social scoring in China that also applies in the U.S. by the same companies. And what did these heads of these companies actually do? They sold us out. They sold out a set of human values, not just American values, but human values. And on the platform of the sellout for money, the big tech companies' access to China and India and other big markets in the world, they had to give up quite a bit, even in this market, you know, to the military-industrial surveillance cult of globalists that run so much of the government these days. And if you don't believe it, keep watching, because it started here in InfoWars. You know, when you think about where all this is going, why do they shut down the voices that oppose the status quo? It's because these are the voices that they fear the most. Yours, mine, the people that are speaking up against the control of speech as a fundamental beginning point. You know, the idea that Alex Jones would be shut down when others with much more vile speech than anything ever coming out of this network continue. You know, I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, so who decides is really the question. Who's going to regulate who gets to speak? This is where we're all threatened, because every voice has a right to be heard and a right to be turned off. But that's an individual choice, not the network's choice, not the medium's choice, not the forbidding of you from entering what is the 21st century public square. And this is what's happened to Alex and to others, and is beginning to see more and more of this kind of treatment as a way to manipulate public thought. So controlling the media is the first attack of the propaganda that we're seeing today, what people call fake news. I mean, think about all the neat little buzzwords that repackage the way we think about things. Think about how words structure a lot about how we then view it. So now what we've got is a tail wagging the dog. We have the media programming generations. The next generation particularly are dialed into the digital world. And that world is what's holding your attention and reshaping our culture. Because people began the feedback loop of a digital, really a digital addiction in so many respects. And then when you lay on top of this, the idea that you can manipulate brain activity, emotional states relatively easily, especially if everyone's dialed in, because modulating a signal in a way that entrains the brain so that you have a more suggestive, open mind to absorb what people are feeding you. And yeah, you'll accept more and more of the BS and think it's real. And here's what becomes even more confusing as you start to augment reality, what they, augmented reality, right? Special glasses, little visors that sort of give you additional feedback as you're cruising through life. But at the same time, extracting information about every move you make and every breath you take. And it's not to enlighten you. It's to shape you, to form you, to shove you into the herd in a way that we have never seen before. So when you look at the layering of controlling behavior that's happening now, and what I see is around the world, doesn't matter where you go in the world, you see the same kind of disruption and reshaping with a cultural overlay. They actually sort of tailor it for the neighborhood, and they do it on a large basis. And then when you scale it down, you see really what's happening, and it's a creation of a consumer society that consumes and that buys and that continually demands resources on a level that's unprecedented, and in a way that really continues to choke the opportunity rather than expand the opportunity for the average person. I mean, the things that made and make America unique, great, is the fact that we all had these unique opportunities, no matter where we came from and no matter how we landed here. And so we have some things in our history that are worth preserving, worth recognizing. But at the same time, we're seeing some of those fundamental values abandoned, not just here, but around the world. And we're talking about human values, which were the foundation of our constitutional values as our founding fathers saw it. And that's what we've lost in so much of this today when we start to think about the changes, the manipulations, the pushing, the limiting of speech. People are afraid in Great Britain because of what's happened there and what's happening there right now to Tommy Robinson and other voices around the world. It's time for voices to be raised one-to-one, personally, talking to people, changing the way we see the world. That's the way the world will change. Tommy Robinson is another symbol of it. We're going to be right back after these brief messages. Remember, the InfoWarsStore.com. Support this network in that way. Thank you so much. We'll be right back after these messages.
InfoWars, the most banned network in the world.
You see Pelosi acting like she's distancing herself from AOC, but that's really the globalist policies. AOC just does it in a ham-fisted way and lies when she gets caught. And so they're trying to act like, the party split. And I was watching different Democrats on Fox News this morning saying we all need to come together and be more centrist. No, the truth is, Republicans have tried to be centrist. We get drug along with their leftist garbage. And the left now has just run away like a fish with a line in the most extreme insanity. And so the media is spinning it like we all need to be less extreme. conservatives and Christians and people, we're not extreme. We're promoting stuff that works, that's tried and true, like family and property and the right to defense and borders and then they're meanwhile saying there's hundreds of genders and pedophilia is good and world government's good and open borders are good and America sucks. And then we're like, okay, what's the alternative? It's just these people, I don't know how they got so whacked out.
Well, I think I've brought this up too, how the left is going insane, and I've had people say, well, everybody's a little bit more polarized and et cetera, et cetera. They've actually done studies. They track the trends of political opinions in the U.S. and they can prove with data that over the past few decades, the right-wing conservatives, Republican Party, they've remained pretty consistent, right? Someone who identifies as right-wing now is going to have a lot of common ground with someone who identified right-wing, let's say 20, 30 years ago. The case is not the same for the left wing. They actually have demonstrably gone further left than they ever have been. I mean, we see this with even people like Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. There are tapes or Barack Obama of them, maybe 10 years ago talking about the importance of securing the border. They're not saying that kind of stuff anymore. One of the only positive things I can say about AOC is I think she is so far left that even Nancy Pelosi and people like that are starting to say, okay, maybe we need to slow things down a little bit. That's honestly the only hope I think the Democrats have right now, because I think among a very small base of people, these far left progressives, people like AOC are great, they're amazing, but I think the Democratic Party needs to realize that America in general is not woke Twitter. They need to stop pandering to these people, or else they're going to feel it in elections.
Animated contest of liberty is waiting for you. But you've got to take it in your hands. You've got to have the will to accept the truth and buck the system and the group collective. Do that, and you'll earn your way to the next level. This is the Info War. They believe that they can attain something if they can destroy the planet before we go to launch phase. They are just an intergalactic demonic transmission spewed out of hell, trying to bring the planet down before the next level. But we will make the jump, and nothing's going to stop it. And we're going to have a pro-human future. We're not just going interstellar. We're going interdimensional. And as we travel up this true stairway to heaven, people won't want to play video games anymore. They'll realize this is the real universe with the real levels. This is where you want to get that score. Not in Super Mario, brother. Not in Donkey Kong. I'm Alex Jones, transmitting from the third dimension, planet Earth, 2/3 of the way out on the spiral arm, Milky Way galaxy.
You're listening to The Alex Jones Show. You're listening to The Alex Jones Show with Nick Begich.
And welcome back to this Friday with the Infowars.com team. Before the break, talking again about speech, the basic fundamental rights, the sort of the beginning of shaping the human mind, if you will. I mean, think about this. This is one of the areas I spent a lot of time the last 25 years researching and reporting on. The manipulation of the mind, human consciousness, even at some levels. But this is what was learned in all of that, and there's some books, you can get them at the Infowars store, and videos as well on mind control that I've authored. They're very well footnoted, hundreds of source documents cited, showing the evolution of the technology. But when you start to lay it on top of everything else that's going on, it becomes really a more integrated system. And And why is it important now, even 25 years after I first started reporting on these issues? And I can tell you, the idea of manipulating what you think to create outcomes in terms of the physical world is one thing, and that's pretty effective. I mean, that's not a very difficult leap to make. The science shows us that to manipulate or to herd a population along emotionally is relatively easily charged up, if you will. You can create those signals even more so now as we reside in this soup of RF, radio frequency energy, from the microwave ranges and up, from millimeter waves to centimeter waves to decimeter waves. The wavelength coupling with various aspects of our physical form, whether it's on a chemical level or even a smaller level. Okay, so manipulating with energy, pulsating energy in very specific frequency ranges can create changes that affect us physically. And this is the basis of many new weapons technologies, not just intended to target the way you think, but every aspect of your connectedness, if you will, to affect all of the physical senses, touch, taste, smell, all of these things that are sort of regulated by the external body and also the mind. The idea of controlling human behavior has been the target of research going back now, 100 years, just about 100 years. And so when you think about the technologies today and the simple applications of utilizing the media by just owning it, and that's the first step, own it. And that's what we see. We see the media consolidated into smaller and smaller sources that most people rely on. And then those sources are manipulated, regulated, and you, instead of viewing the news, become part of the data collection. You're just a node in the system, data being collected on each of us, categorized, utilized, and then marketed, or manipulated, or both, or all of it. That's the truth of the matter, is you're surveyed and surveilled, and then you're manipulated, and then you're pushed along and manipulated along to sing whatever song they want you to sing. And this is where it has all changed. And what's also discovered in all of that research was this other aspect of human beings, this higher aspect of what we are, actually what indeed we are at our core. And then you want to talk about the shaking and trembling of governments when they recognize the individual power of a human soul when fully activated, because all of this research led them to that. And that's the fear. And so the surveillance is about seeing what's up. Who are the ones acting out? Who are the ones demonstrating the capability that you're going to want to snuff out in a hurry when things start getting a little wild? And they are wild when you think about it. Now, what happened in Europe and why did Brexit happen? It's because the elites of the world bought into their own propaganda to a level that they started believing their own press releases ahead of the public because they were already convinced. And so the backlash that you're seeing in Europe right now is a backlash against this globalistic view of the world, which the EU was just a step along that merry way. And the backlash was because they went too fast. The slow boil didn't work quite so well when they turned up the temperature and people said, hey, wait, it's a little hot in here. And the same thing is happening here in the U.S. But here's some overlays to throw on top of this. Now, what are elites truly fearful of? It's a population that's activated and engaged because of what's coming. What's coming is a further consolidation of power, economic and otherwise, into the hands of fewer and fewer people. And the reason we know this is because of AI. Think about artificial intelligence and robotics combined with a surveillance state. The enforcement arm, if you will, becomes the very technology created in a lot of ways in our image. Think about that. The hardware and the software and the computer stuff, all of it is in our image, right? The AI gods created in our image, which is kind of bad news because humans are pretty flawed, but consciousness links us in a way that even big tech can't fight. They try to emulate, and so they're trying to create what's called the worldwide mind. If you look at PBS, Public Broadcasting System's show by the same name, the worldwide mind, the prediction is for sometime in the next 60, 70 years for that to be the state of affairs, where all our minds are linked without the need of the, computer interface. Now, some people think that's a good idea. Personally, my take on it's really a little bit contrarian. I not only think it's a bad idea, but at the same time, I say it already exists. And it's called the consciousness that is us, what we're created in the image of the Creator, the essence of us, is that. This is what elites fear, is the activation of that. The potential of a human soul is what is most fearful for elites. And this is where the opportunity to rise up into what we are and remember what we are as created human beings, begin to emulate that. That's where the fear for elites begins and ends. Activated humans. I'm not talking about violence in the streets, which is what you see this elite trying to create a tribalistic view of the world that separates us, it divides us, that breaks us into little parts as if we are separated, but we're not. We're created in one image of one Creator. We need to act that way. We need to be different in the way we project into the world. And we need to insist on a different world that represents what 243 years ago in 1776 our founding fathers thought was a great idea. Free, sovereign souls. This is Dr. Nick Begich, and you're listening to the Info Wars. We'll be right back after these messages.
All right, that was really just a test just to kind of see what YouTube's going to let me get away with. I hope you enjoyed watching, if it does in fact stay up, and I certainly hope they let me monetize it. So let's find out. Thanks. Have a good day. Bye.